Good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey from the not so exciting world of Las Vegas, Corey in Texas, and me in Ohio. After seeing Steve's video, I was very jealous that, he's like walking around with DJs and billionaires and I'm, at home and Corey's in the office there and there's no DJs or billionaires in either one of these places.
Or barbers.
Or barbers. Yeah, I have to like drive to the barber, and that's all right. I like going to the barber.
Did they have optometrists over there too in Vegas?
Yes. No, I wish they did. I went to the optometrist today. So yeah, I guess what? My eyes are getting worse. There's a shocker. I'm not quite to reading glasses yet, but I'm on my way. So today's topics, Corey's going to talk about the stable coin and Circle IPO. And then I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to call it the future of travel, or a component of the future of travel with Joby Aviation. So with that, this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything that you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So I'll let Corey take it away first and talk about stable.
Yeah, we heard last week the Senate voted 66-22 late on Monday to advance the Genius Act, a bill that aims to regulate some cryptocurrencies. Primarily, or what people were most focused on here, was the regulation of stable coins. So stable coins are those coins that are pegged to another asset. Like the most popular one, USDC, is the US dollar coin. It's pegged to the US dollar. The use case there is that this USDC coin can be transacted in the crypto space much more easily without ever having to alternate to a different currency altogether, like dollars or something. So it kind of integrates the crypto space with, the more common currency space that we're most familiar with. So,
hey, Corey, I got to jump in and say, anything the Senate votes 66-22, that sounds like bipartisan support. So,
sure.
Just right away when I saw that it wasn't 51-49 or 52-48, I was like, wow, that's great, because that's, we got some bipartisan agreement. So, plus, how could you vote against something called the Genius Act? It just feels like it's like, wait, I'm not in favor of the Genius. I mean, that's a good name for it. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So fast forward, and the number one stablecoin issuer, the issuer of that USDC, named Circle, is kicking off its IPO, targeting a nearly $6 billion valuation. Mike, here's their business model. So they've hold about $60 billion of USD, basically, that they peg to their stablecoin USDC, and they collect, they clip the interest off of that, and that's their business model. So they're earning interest off of that $60 billion. If you look at a valuation basis, I think this company's probably done revenue in the past year of somewhere in that $1.5 billion range, and they're looking for a $6 billion valuation. So kind of a cheap valuation coming out for an IPO, because there's a lot of questions about how much can they defend their position in the space. I tend to believe that they probably will be able to, but of course then they do have interest rate risk, right? If rates fall for any reason, I mean, that's their source of revenue. That's their only source of revenue. So very interesting business model. It looks like the ticker is going to be CRCL, I believe. And yeah, that's kind of it. It should be coming out, I think, early June, first week of June. So, Mike, are you interested in this one? You think? I mean, it's a pure play. It's pure play.
Like when I hear like you're making money off interest, I'm thinking like it's like buying like USFR, as your primary holding. It sounds stable, but it doesn't sound exciting. It's not like buying Coinbase where it goes up. You know, I don't know. I need to look into it more. Certainly, I'm not going to jump into an IPO on a digital asset holder. You know, but I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad that it's stable and solid. So I need to evaluate more.
They do mention, Mike, that Circle is actually behind Tether in market share of those stable coins. So, and it's grown faster than Tether recently. I know Tether had an accounting issue where some they weren't keeping all the reserves that they said they were at one point. So, but that they're privately held. So, all right, that's all I've got, Mike, from the crypto world.
Right. Well, hey, I just want to say, you know, I attended the CES conference, Consumer Electronics Conference in Vegas earlier this year, and the Delta CEO presented there. You know, Delta, you know, augmenting their model and making it better for customers when they fly. And they brought up this company called Joby Aviation. So this is the first time I'd heard of it, was at this conference. And I'll show you what it is. It's an electric air taxi. And of course, you know, the CEO of Delta, you know, showed, you know, how this would work. And it's like, you know, somebody was in, like, I think it was New York City, and they needed to get to the airport to fly their Delta, but there was traffic. And they sent out this little electric plane. It's not very big, and I believe it's not even piloted. Yeah, it's like it's almost like the what do you call it? Like a robo taxi is where it's going.
A
And of
human
course,
drone.
I can't even imagine how expensive this is. You know, you know, I'm sure it's not $50 to use it. Um, and I'm not even sure how comfortable people would be with flying in a, you know, virtual, or not a virtual, an automated electric air. Like, ooh, I hope the battery's charged, or we're not only going to stop, we're going to drop into whatever. Um, but anyways, so I thought it was interesting, you know, and initially I looked at the shares. I considered it for our ego stocks, but, you know, did not decide to go forward. And if you look at a year-to-date chart, you know, it's probably a good decision because it's dropped since the beginning of the year. Actually, now I guess it's up, but it went down a good 30% and then just recovered. It's up 30% today. And that's why it's in the news, is because Toyota is popping $250 million into it. So, you know, they need cash to operate. You know, Toyota says we're going to put in 250 million and, you know, invest more money. And now this, you know, now it's like, hey, the company might not go bankrupt. That's why the company goes up 30% on this kind of an investment. Because I'm sure prior to this, it's like it could go bankrupt. That's why people might not want to be in this. But what I really want to focus on is less about the actual stock. It's really the future of transportation. So this, you know, whether it's the robo taxis, which we've heard Tesla talk about for 5 years plus, which I actually got to take it was actually a Porsche that was in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is a robo taxi that I took from a hotel to an airport. And I know they're in Austin, and I know they're expanding out, and that is the Waymo, or a Joby Aviation. And then so this future of transportation, it's becoming more automated, as far as not needing a driver. But on top of that, you have Uber and Lyft, and you have all these things. And I'm going to say against the backdrop of rising auto insurance. So auto insurance has been one of the highest inflationary items over the last 3 or 4 years, 20% year over year. And if it's, you know, you're one adult in your home or two adults, it's not that big a deal. But when you have young drivers, it is so expensive. I have a kid who has his own car, payment. His auto insurance is more than his car payment. So think about that. He's paying more in auto insurance each month than his actual car payment to own the vehicle. So the future of transportation, I have to believe, is these younger generations are going to be like, I'm not really sure it's worth owning a vehicle. You know, back in my day, it was a big, you know, when you turn 16, you like, I'm getting my driver's license. Nowadays, kids, can they even afford to? Can they afford the auto insurance on that? So we're going to see a shift, I believe, from everybody or a lot of people owning a vehicle. You know, I don't know how big that shift will be. I'm not saying cars are going to go away because we're going to have the robo taxis, but I'm saying the percentage of drivers is going to go down. And I kind of jokingly said to our group, it's kind of like 100 years ago, everybody knew how to ride a horse, most likely. And nowadays, you know, I would guess that's a very small percentage of people that actually ride a horse, and even less that actually own a horse. So, you know, it's where we're going. So, anyways, Corey, what do you think about that? You got young kids.
When you mentioned, yeah, well, we'll see what happens. They've got some time, probably about almost 10 years for our oldest to start driving. But yeah, when you mentioned the horse thing, it did kind of make me think horses are kind of a luxury item now versus a common item, and maybe vehicles will turn into the same thing.
It could be. It will be interesting. You know, if you watch a movie like Ready Player One, there's not many vehicles out there anymore. It becomes the virtual world, and you got some drones running around. So I just say it's something to keep an eye on. You know, I can't fathom not having a vehicle or driving myself. It's just a concept I can't hardly imagine. I kind of think of a car as the, you know, the electronic version of a horse. If I want to go somewhere 30 miles away, it's not a big deal for me to get in my car and go. You know, 100 years ago, 30 miles away, maybe, or 150 years ago, you know, maybe you take a horse, that's a little more difficult. But we get to a point where you walk, oh, something's 30 miles away. I'm not going. That's not even an option. So, anyways, I just thought it was an interesting concept in relation to this Joby Aviation. And we'll continue to watch where this goes. And if any of you watching this ever takes one of these, whoever the first one is that takes one of these Joby Aviation flights, let us know. I would love to talk to you about it and what your experience is.
I want to know Steve's opinion. He's the pilot in the group, and would he get in a little human drone? I'd probably be the last one in, I think.
Yeah, probably. And I know Steve's flown some experimental aircraft, so he might be like, oh, I want to keep my hands on the whatever, yoke, throttle, whatever, you know, where it's hard to just let yourself be flown, you know. But, you know, the Jetsons, remember that show that, well, that was before your time. The Jetsons,
yep.
You know, that's what they do. They just walked out and the little thing picked them up. So, anyways, that's all we got today. Thanks, everybody. Bye.